So, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to our French GARP webinar. Thank you for coming. I'm Susie Guillemot, and I will be guiding you through the webinar this afternoon. Before giving you details about today's program and some user advice on interacting with us, I will leave the floor to Véronique Régnier, coordinator for the GARP project in France. Véronique will provide us with the background and context for today's subject.
Thank you, Susie. Thank you for joining us to the first webinars organized in the framework of GARP project in France. The Global Aging Research Partnership Project is a university consortium involving 5 universities from 5 countries: Canada, China, Austria, Poland, which is the leader of the project, and France. Our objectives in GARP project is to create spaces for exchanges on the theme of research, methodological approaches, and research practices on the theme of aging. A first workshop was held at the University of Ottawa on the theme of connected autonomy. Then Hong Kong took over with a webinar on the theme of Geron infusion education. It is with great pleasure that France, with the Jean Monnet University of Saint-Étienne, takes over today to present you our work and research reflection. We have chosen 2 major themes that will show you an overview of our research activities. The first one today is related to health prevention, in a global meaning of health and global meaning of prevention. It's an important area of research in our university. This is why this first day will be dedicated to our approach of health prevention for the elderly. During our second webinar, the question of supported relationship in aging will be our central topic. Through these 2 events, our hope is that these days will lead to more personalized contact between researchers, and that common research projects will emerge in the GARP community and further. Indeed, the challenges that our societies have to face on the issues of aging really need the interdisciplinary and intercultural diversity that can arise from our discussion today. I now give the floor to the Dean of the Faculty of Medicine of Jean Monnet University, who supported us in the organization of this event. Thank you to him and to all the researchers who have been involved in this webinar. Have a nice day.
Hello everyone. On behalf of the Jacques Lisfranc Faculty of Medicine of Saint-Étienne, it is a pleasure for me to welcome you to this symposium organized in the framework of the Global Aging Research Partnership. This meeting offers an opportunity to exchange experiences, reflection, and good practice in the area of research on aging. The Faculty of Medicine of Saint-Étienne is home to research team on this theme, including immunological aging, exercise, and the best prevention of age-related disease. In addition, the Jean Monnet University Chair in Senior Health is an important player in the field of preventing the loss of autonomy of the elderly. This year, due to the coronavirus-19 health crisis, it was necessary to understand our modes of communication for the scientific conference. In spite of these constraints, I have no doubt about the quality of the work and exchanges during these webinars. I wish you an excellent conference.
Thank you very much, Professor Berthelot. The program today will alternate between interventions given by researchers and roundtable debates. Some of the interventions will be via a video and some will be live. This webinar focuses on aging and prevention issues. We will have two themes for the roundtable. For the roundtable debates. The first is physical activity prevention and aging. The second is innovation in adapted prevention for aging. Naturally, we would like to hear your ideas and questions throughout the webinar. You can do so via the live chat, which is available to all. Thank you for sharing your identity when using the chat. It makes things more personal. We will now be watching a video by Natalie Bart, who introduces the theme of today's webinar.
Considérer les parcours des sujets vieillissants et les modes de vie de nos aînés, c'est aussi mettre en avant la question de l'engagement des personnes dans de nouvelles normes de santé, alors même qu'elles sont parfois fragilisées par l'âge, la maladie ou encore les conditions sociales. Ainsi, comment agir sur les déterminants de santé? Comment favoriser le mieux vieillir? Plus précisément, comment inscrire nos aînés dans de nouvelles habitudes de vie qui dépassent le simple fait de bien manger ou encore de bouger mieux? Plus concrètement, comment engager nos aînés dans des actions de prévention et comment les rendre acteurs de leur santé? Comment ainsi favoriser l'empowerment des sujets dans leur processus de vieillissement? En matière d'activité physique, le maintien d'une pratique régulière est très souvent mis en avant par la médecine du sport, notamment pour les bénéfices physiques et physiologiques qu'elle procure. Cela passe souvent en milieu hospitalier par la mise en place de programmes d'éducation thérapeutique qui incluent à la fois des séances théoriques et parfois même des séances pratiques d'activité physique adaptées. Les médecins traitants ont également la possibilité, en France, de prescrire une activité physique pour les personnes notamment atteintes d'une affection de longue durée. À ce jour, des associations sportives, des organisations territoriales de santé proposent des actions préventives au plus près des populations. L'objectif est notamment de remettre en mouvement la personne qui est initialement sédentaire, en l'accompagnant par l'organisation d'ateliers ou de cycles de pratique, adaptés à leurs conditions et à leurs aptitudes. Ces campagnes de promotion et de sensibilisation à la pratique d'activité physique à destination des seniors ont également pour objectif de lutter contre la sédentarité, de favoriser toute forme d'activité physique. Alors notamment la mobilité active, qui consiste par exemple à privilégier la marche au transport en commun, les pratiques physiques du quotidien, telles que le jardinage par exemple, l'adaptation des pratiques dites traditionnelles. À ces recommandations médicales s'associent les chercheurs en sciences humaines et sociales qui insistent notamment sur les impacts psychosociaux essentiels pour le bien-être des populations. Avec l'avancée en âge et les problématiques associées, la baisse des capacités, le déclin cognitif ou encore l'isolement social, la question des conditions de pratique, des environnements et des stratégies motivationnelles sont centrales. Informer sur les bénéfices de l'activité physique, orienter vers les dispositifs ne suffisent généralement pas. Comment ainsi motiver les personnes les plus éloignées de toute forme de pratique physique? Les chercheurs en sciences humaines et sociales sont alors en mesure d'identifier les facteurs favorables à l'engagement dans une pratique d'activité physique au regard de l'analyse des publics, de l'analyse des environnements et des contextes de vie. Elle contribue également à l'évaluation de l'impact des actions sur la santé et la qualité de vie des bénéficiaires et participe ainsi à l'amélioration continue de l'offre existante en matière de prévention. Ce webinaire propose de mettre en lumière quelques expérimentations innovantes, révélatrices d'un dynamisme collectif et pluridisciplinaire. Dans le cadre de ces recherches interventionnelles présentées, les sciences humaines et sociales occupent une place centrale quant à la compréhension des besoins et l'identification des attentes des acteurs, des personnes vieillissantes, des aidants et ou des professionnels. Les stratégies adoptées en matière d'orientation vers des séances collectives de prévention rendent compte de l'expérience des patients, des freins et leviers à la pratique d'une activité physique, à l'image par exemple de stratégies innovantes basées sur le marketing en santé ou encore sur le concept de paire et danse. Enfin, les usages des nouvelles technologies qui, à travers l'intelligence artificielle, favorisent le maintien de la pratique physique, ne peuvent faire l'économie de l'apport des SHS, notamment dans les études d'acceptabilité et de l'utilité perçue. La place accordée à la personne vieillissante dans le processus d'innovation est centrale. En plus de celle de la personne elle-même, les études présentées associent les expertises multiples de la chaire santé des aînés de l'UJM de Saint-Étienne et du Gérontopole Aura, composée notamment de médecins, de chercheurs, d'ingénieurs, de psychologues et de sociologues.
Thank you, Nathalie. On the set, I have been joined by Bienvenue Bonguet, Professor and Project Coordinator, Caroline Dupré, who's a statistician, Jessica Guillot, who is our Project Coordinator, and Luc Goethals and Maxime Catrom, who are both PhD students. They will be addressing the first theme, which is physical activity, prevention and aging, and then we will all have a debate together on that subject. Before we watch our first video for this theme, I would like to point out to you all that there are other videos that you can go and watch on our site, on our website, but unfortunately we won't have time to watch them all together. Caroline's video addresses the importance of physical activity in the prevention of cognitive aging.
Bonjour, je suis Caroline Dupré, biostatisticienne, et je vais vous présenter mes travaux de recherche sur l'importance des différents types d'activités physiques dans la prévention du vieillissement cognitif chez les personnes âgées. Les bénéfices associés à l'activité physique sont connus. Sur la santé en général, la mortalité est diminuée de 22% avec une activité physique modérée ou élevée. Sur des risques plus spécifiques comme les maladies cardiovasculaires, l'hypertension ou l'obésité, l'activité physique a aussi un effet positif. Sur la santé cognitive, le risque est aussi diminué avec l'activité physique. Sur la démence, le risque est diminué de 21 à 28%. Sur le déclin cognitif, le risque est diminué de 26 à 33%. La littérature sur le lien entre activité physique et cognition est abondante, mais les résultats sont hétérogènes, notamment du fait du type et des niveaux d'activité physique étudiés, mais aussi par le manque d'études sur l'activité domestique, qui est largement utilisée chez les personnes âgées. Enfin, les méthodes statistiques sont très variées, que ce soit sur le recueil d'activité physique, mais aussi sur les méthodes statistiques. De ce constat, plusieurs questions de recherche sont apparues. D'abord, les types d'activités physiques. Les activités des personnes âgées sont nombreuses et il était important de recueillir à la fois les activités de loisirs, sportives, mais aussi toutes les activités de mode de vie et notamment domestiques. Ensuite, il était important d'étudier la quantité d'activité physique pour voir la relation dose-réponse entre l'activité physique et la cognition et voir notamment si des niveaux d'activité physique permettaient de changer cette dose de réponse. C'est ce qu'on appelle les points d'inflexion. Enfin, les méthodes statistiques appropriées dans l'étude de la survenue de la démence ou des troubles cognitifs sont des données longitudinales qui ont nécessité l'utilisation de méthodes statistiques appropriées, notamment les spleens pour la quantité d'activité physique, mais aussi les modèles de Cox ou les modèles linéaires mixtes pour étudier l'évolution au cours du temps de la cognition. Pour cela, 4 cohortes ont été mises à notre disposition. 4 cohortes sur 4 populations de personnes âgées. Une cohorte française, la cohorte des 3 cités, 3C, 2 cohortes canadiennes, Frel et Setti, et une cohorte stéphanoise, la cohorte Proof. Ces 4 cohortes nous ont permis d'analyser à la fois la démence, mais aussi la cognition. La démence à partir du DSM-4 et la cognition grâce à des tests globaux comme le MMSE ou le MoCA, mais aussi à des tests spécifiques. L'activité physique a été évaluée grâce à 4 questionnaires spécifiques aux personnes âgées et ou nous permettant de recueillir les activités domestiques. Le VURIPS, le PAS, le RAPA et le POPAC. Les premiers résultats sur la cohorte 3C nous ont permis d'analyser l'association entre les types d'activités physiques et la survenue de la démence. L'activité de loisirs et sportive n'était pas significativement liée à la survenue de la démence. Par contre, les activités physiques domestiques et de transport étaient significativement liées à la survenue de la démence. Le risque de démence a notamment diminué de 45% pour les activités modérées et de 38% pour les activités plus élevées d'activités domestiques et de transport. La cohorte 3C nous a permis aussi d'analyser l'évolution de la cognition en fonction des différents types d'activités physiques. Comme précédemment, les activités de loisirs et sportives ne sont pas significativement liées à l'évolution de la cognition au cours du temps. Par contre, les activités domestiques et de transport sont significativement liées à l'évolution de la cognition au cours du temps. Le déclin au cours du temps des fonctions exécutives et de la fluence verbale est moindre avec les activités domestiques et de transport. Sur le test Isaac, les activités domestiques permettent de diminuer le déclin de 0,2 mots par an. Sur le test TMTB, nous avons une réduction d'1 seconde par an. La cohorte Frel nous a permis d'étudier l'association avec les différents types d'activités physiques et la survenue des troubles cognitifs. Ces troubles cognitifs ont été définis par un seuil à 18 sur le test MoCA ou un seuil à 26 pour le test MMSE. À nouveau, les activités de loisirs et sportifs ne sont pas liées significativement à la survenue des troubles cognitifs. Par contre, les activités domestiques le sont. Les données de la cohorte Frel confortent donc les résultats de la cohorte 3C en montrant un lien significatif entre la cognition et les activités domestiques et de transport. Par contre, pas de lien significatif avec les activités loisirs et sportives. Par contre, les données de la cohorte SETI nous ont permis de voir un lien entre les activités ou plutôt les exercices de force musculaire et de flexibilité avec la survenue des troubles cognitifs. Les résultats sont stables quand nous avons ajusté sur les comorbidités. Nous avons donc en conclusion un risque de développer des troubles cognitifs qui est diminué avec les exercices de force musculaire et de flexibilité, notamment avec un hazard ratio à 0,84. Les données de la cohorte PROOF, la cohorte stéphanoise, nous a permis d'analyser l'évolution négative de la cognition au cours du temps. Ces analyses ont montré que les activités de mode de vie permettaient de réduire le risque de moindre performance cognitive, et notamment une diminution de la plainte mnésique au cours du temps, mais aussi une diminution de la perte de cognition globale au cours du temps, et enfin une diminution du risque de moindre performance selon le test de Grober. En conclusion, nous avons pu analyser 4 cohortes, donc 4 populations de personnes âgées différentes, avec l'utilisation de 4 questionnaires d'activité physique différents. Certains de ces questionnaires étaient spécifiques aux personnes âgées et d'autres nous ont permis de recueillir différents types d'activités physiques comme les activités domestiques. Nous avons pu aussi analyser différents concepts du vieillissement cognitif comme la démence, la survenue des troubles cognitifs ou l'évolution de la cognition au cours du temps. Nous avons aussi utilisé différentes méthodes statistiques comme les splits pour la quantité d'activité physique et ainsi voir la relation dose-réponse entre l'activité physique et la cognition, mais aussi des méthodes de données longitudinales comme les analyses de Cox ou les analyses modèles linéaires mixtes. L'ensemble des résultats a montré l'importance des activités domestiques, donc de mode de vie chez les personnes âgées. Il est donc important de maintenir la personne âgée dans une autonomie afin qu'elle puisse réaliser l'ensemble de ses activités. Il est donc important de maintenir l'autonomie des personnes âgées le plus longtemps possible.
Thank you, Caroline. That was very interesting. I have a question for you. You used self-evaluation questionnaires on physical activity, thus a subjective collection. Why did you not realize an objective evaluation using an accelerometer, for example?
Yes, physical activity measurement can be realized with pedometer or accelerometer, but these methods are not well validated, particularly among the elderly people. In addition, these methods don't permit to analyze the different type of physical activity, just the quantity of physical activity. Physical activity questionnaires are numerous, and some are specific for the elderly, and they permit to analyze the different type of physical activity, and especially the domestic activity.
Okay. Right, our next video is the presentation of the PressGap project by Jessica Guillot, Florian Haut and Julie Thomas.
Le projet ActiPair est une expérience en activité physique de patients atteints de cancer de la prostate qui évalue la faisabilité d'un suivi de la motivation par les pairs. Les bénéfices de l'activité physique pour les patients atteints de cancer sont clairement reconnus dans la littérature scientifique et font l'objet de recommandations. L'OMS recommande la pratique de 150 minutes par semaine d'activité physique d'intensité modérée, équivalent à de la marche rapide. Mais malgré les nombreux bénéfices et les recommandations de pratique, cette population demeure inactive. L'idée du projet est de trouver une stratégie permettant à cette population de suivre les recommandations de pratique d'activité physique. Ce projet est né d'une réflexion d'une équipe pluridisciplinaire composée de médecins spécialistes de la physiologie clinique, de sociologues, de professionnels de la promotion de la santé et de professionnels d'activité physique adaptée, qu'on appelle APA. Ce programme combine 3 stratégies d'intervention. Le suivi motivationnel par les pairs, qui sont des patients atteints de la même pathologie et suivant les recommandations de pratique d'activité physique, la mise en œuvre d'un projet d'activité physique qui est personnalisé et adapté aux besoins et à l'environnement du patient, et d'un suivi rapproché par les professionnels de santé. Chacune de ces stratégies a démontré de façon indépendante son efficacité sur la pérennisation de pratiques d'activité physique. Le programme est basé sur la théorie de l'autodétermination qui s'appuie sur l'hypothèse que 3 besoins psychologiques sont à la base de la motivation humaine. Le besoin d'autonomie, le besoin de compétence et le besoin d'appartenance sociale. L'objectif du projet est d'évaluer la faisabilité du programme avec une analyse mixte à la fois qualitative et quantitative et utilisant des indicateurs de moyens, de processus et de résultats intermédiaires, notamment via des mesures objectives et subjectives du niveau d'activité physique. Pour les patients atteints d'un cancer de la prostate n'étant plus en cours de traitement, sauf sous hormonothérapie, l'objectif est d'initier et maintenir une activité physique régulière. L'étude comporte 3 étapes. Une première étape qualitative qui vise à identifier les freins et les leviers à la pratique d'activité physique. Une deuxième étape consistant à recruter et former des patients pairs. Et une troisième étape dont l'objectif est de mettre en place le programme ActiPair pour des patients inactifs et ou sédentaires. Cette troisième étape est facilitée par Sport Santé 42, qui est une plateforme permettant de faire le lien avec les structures labellisées Sport Santé, dans lesquelles des patients pourront exercer une activité physique adaptée. Nathalie Barthes, sociologue, va vous présenter les résultats de la première étape.
Dans une perspective interactionniste et compréhensive, l'enquête qualitative proposée s'appuie sur les concepts de trajectoire de maladie et de carrière appliqués à la maladie cancer. La trajectoire considère l'évolution de la pathologie, mais aussi l'ensemble du travail de tous les acteurs influençant le cours de la pathologie, les pairs, les familles, les professionnels de santé. Il s'agit de comprendre le processus d'engagement et celui du maintien de l'engagement dans une activité physique, en considérant le vécu de la personne, mais aussi les différentes temporalités relatives à l'entrée dans une carrière de pratiquant. Si la personne sédentaire se convertit à un style de vie plus actif, il s'agit bien d'une bifurcation de pratique pour les personnes initialement sportives. La carrière nous invite également à considérer la réversibilité de l'engagement et les ruptures et les continuités des parcours. À travers cette enquête, nous cherchons à identifier les raisons de non-engagement dans une activité physique, les besoins, les représentations et les stéréotypes associés à cette recommandation d'activité physique, mais aussi les freins et les leviers à un engagement durable. En termes de méthodologie, nous avons réalisé 39 entretiens semi-directifs auprès de patients atteints d'un cancer de la prostate. 13 patients pairs, 26 patients sédentaires ont été interrogés. On remarque de façon significative que les personnes sédentaires sont plus âgées, avec une moyenne d'âge de 76 ans, contre 68 pour les patients pairs. On remarque également que les patients sédentaires sont davantage en situation de précarité, avec 5 personnes identifiées à travers le score EPIS. 79% d'entre eux sont atteints au moins d'une autre pathologie, hypertension, cholestérol, diabète de type 2 ou autre pathologie cardiaque. Donc il y a un cumul fréquent de pathologies associées. Globalement, les patients pairs ont des pronostics plus favorables. Les résultats de l'étude qualitative présentée ici ne sont pas exhaustifs. Notons que la simple évocation du mot cancer suffit à créer la rupture biographique au sens de Bury, avec un diagnostic souvent posé par hasard. Un rapport au corps renouvelé suite à la prise en charge et notamment en lien avec les conséquences du traitement est évoqué. Les patients se sentent plus vulnérables avec un cœur fragilisé et une période de doute et de stress. Il est important de noter que la prise en main et l'acceptation de la maladie semblent être plus rapides chez les patients pairs, avec une minimisation a posteriori des symptômes et des conséquences, à l'image par exemple de ce patient pour qui le cancer est associé à une mauvaise grippe. Face à la recommandation de pratique, on remarque chez le profil pair une intensification de la pratique dans une volonté de contrer les effets délétères du traitement et une volonté de continuer la pratique initiale. Chez les patients sédentaires, il s'agit plutôt d'une volonté de retrouver sa vie d'avant, de faire une pratique physique plutôt inscrite dans la vie quotidienne. En cela, les patients adoptent une posture d'auxiliaire médical dans le sens où ils observent leur traitement thérapeutique, mais ne s'engagent pas spontanément dans une activité physique. Les personnes interrogées précisent qu'ils ont eu peu ou pas de recommandations de pratique de la part de leur médecin traitant. Concernant la pratique d'activité physique des patients pairs, le diagnostic du cancer marque une rupture dans les modalités de pratique sportive initiale. Les discours rendent compte d'une bifurcation de pratique, du sport vers de l'activité physique, avec des pratiques plutôt individuelles, de préférence, et une augmentation des pratiques libres non institutionnalisées, c'est-à-dire hors compétition et hors club sportif. Pour les personnes en réussite de projet en matière d'activité physique, les modalités et finalités de pratique ont évolué chez les pairs vers une pratique avant tout plaisir et santé. On remarque néanmoins que la recherche de performance persiste avec des personnes qui ont la volonté de progresser et de se lancer des défis personnels. L'ancienneté sportive favorise clairement cet engagement. Néanmoins, la compétition n'est plus recherchée. À travers l'intensification des pratiques, c'est une recherche globale du capital santé qui est recherchée. C'est ainsi que de nouvelles normes de santé sont adoptées au-delà de la pratique physique régulière, en matière d'alimentation par exemple, de limitation de consommation de tabac ou encore d'alcool, mais aussi à travers l'adoption d'un style de vie plus actif, avec plus de voyages, plus de sorties culturelles par exemple. Les leviers et les bénéfices de l'engagement dans une activité physique sont évoqués pour tous les profils. Le plaisir, la sensation de bien-être, l'amour de la nature. Les bénéfices physiques sont évoqués, mais une importance importante est accordée aux bénéfices psychologiques. L'activité physique étant un moyen de s'évader, de ne pas penser au caractère létal de la pathologie. On retrouve également l'importance accordée au soutien familial. Les patients pairs évoquent également la volonté de s'ouvrir aux autres. À travers l'activité physique, c'est aussi l'occasion de lier des liens extra-familiaux qui permettent d'échanger sur la maladie. Cet objectif est secondaire chez les patients sédentaires qui évoluent davantage dans des cercles restreints et qui ont pour objectif prioritaire de retrouver une vie normale en reprenant leur habitude initiale. Si les patients sédentaires considèrent l'activité physique comme une contrainte et une difficulté à surmonter, les patients pairs considèrent davantage l'activité physique comme un élément de gestion de la maladie à part entière. Enfin, les récits font état des obstacles et freins à la reprise d'activité physique, avec une importance accordée aux limitations physiques, aux barrières environnementales et organisationnelles déjà largement référencées dans la littérature. Les douleurs, la fatigue, les problèmes de sommeil, d'incontinence, voire les séquelles de l'opération sont évoqués. Les conditions météorologiques, le moral, mais également la distance des lieux de pratique, comme l'isolement, le manque de temps, sont des freins largement évoqués dans les récits. La représentation d'un sport non adapté et la méconnaissance de l'activité physique adaptée, la peur de l'accident, le fait de se sentir fragile et vulnérable, mais également le manque de confiance en leurs capacités sont également évoqués dans les récits. Les personnes interrogées indiquent préférer une pratique libre, sans contrainte, et globalement préférer une pratique individuelle qui s'inscrit dans leur quotidien, telle que faire des travaux ou encore jardiner. La présence de l'entourage est importante, le fait de pratiquer en couple ou en famille. Globalement, les patients sédentaires n'éprouvent pas le besoin d'une activité physique supplémentaire et, dans un premier temps en tout cas, ne se sentent pas concernés.
Nous allons vous présenter maintenant une petite vidéo mettant en lumière l'accompagnement par les pairs.
Une étude a été lancée au CHU de Saint-Étienne. L'équipe soignante a eu une idée pour motiver ses patients soignés pour un cancer de la prostate. Vous voyez ce reportage signé Adèle Lecanu, Aldo Cardulo, Thierry Auden qui sont allés se voir sur place.
Allez, on s'arrête pas, monsieur Mazelier. On s'arrête pas. Doucement, mais régulièrement.
Motivé, encouragé, Pascal prend sa nouvelle mission très à cœur. Une fois par semaine, il accompagne François pour une randonnée de plusieurs heures.
Il est un petit peu rouillé au niveau articulation. On a mis de l'huile et après 5-10 minutes de marche, il accélère et tout se met en marche. Les débuts est toujours un peu dur.
Si François doit reprendre le sport, c'est qu'il a été traité pendant 3 ans pour un cancer de la prostate. Pour l'accompagner, les médecins comptent sur Pascal, un ancien patient. Il est ce qu'on appelle un patient pair.
Le constat, c'est que 60 à 70% des patients atteints du cancer de la prostate restent inactifs et sédentaires. Donc on se dit que le message probablement ne passe pas, peut-être que ce message n'est pas assez pertinent, et on s'est posé la question de faire intervenir un patient qui a l'expérience de la maladie, donc un patient pair, parce qu'il a toute cette sensibilité que nous n'avons pas. Le patient, il a vécu la maladie, il a vécu l'annonce du diagnostic, la prise en charge, et je pense que c'est vraiment un atout de pouvoir impliquer les patients pairs dans cette prise en charge.
Et tout le monde y trouve son compte.
Santé, moi je le verrai là derrière.
N'importe quoi.
Là, moi ça m'a permis de sortir et de marcher un peu, alors que je ne fais pas de sport tout seul, quoi. Je reste en groupe.
Je me suis aperçu qu'on pouvait marcher 3 heures. J'y arrivais alors que jamais je l'aurais fait si j'avais pas un coach exigeant et qui me casse les pieds, quoi. Je suis obligé d'y aller, quoi. Allez, on y va.
Comme un tiers des patients atteints d'un cancer de la prostate, François a subi une hormonothérapie.
Remettez la mécanique en route.
3 ans de traitement, efficace certes, mais lourd de conséquences.
Les effets secondaires du traitement hormonal, c'est dans l'ordre de sévérité. C'est ce qu'on appelle le syndrome métabolique, qui est en fait presque un diabète. C'est une surmorbidité cardiovasculaire qui n'est pas forcément directement liée au syndrome métabolique. C'est l'ostéoporose, donc la fragilité osseuse qui est due au traitement hormonal. C'est une diminution de l'élan vital. On a moins de peps, on a moins de pêche quand on a un traitement hormonal.
C'est justement là que l'activité physique entre en jeu.
En faisant du sport, on diminue le risque d'avoir ces effets secondaires Et on diminue le risque parfois de façon tellement importante qu'on gomme le risque.
Après 1 mois et demi de randonnée hebdomadaire, François a gagné en forme et en assurance. C'est la première fois depuis sa maladie qu'il parvient à faire cette ascension.
C'est une victoire, oui, c'est vrai, c'est vrai. Je surmonte ma douleur et aujourd'hui spécialement bien, alors, pourvu que ça dure.
Les médecins surveilleront François pendant 1 an et verront s'il garde une activité physique régulière, avec ou sans Pascal.
La phase 2 du projet a permis de recruter 13 patients pairs, parmi lesquels 9 ont été formés. La phase 3, consistant à accompagner les patients inactifs et ou sédentaires, nous ont permis d'orienter 24 patients vers le DAPAP et de les mettre en relation avec un pair. Le projet ayant fait la preuve de sa faisabilité, nous souhaitons maintenant déployer le programme au-delà du département de la Loire, évaluer son efficacité et son implémentation afin de recueillir les facteurs clés de succès et d'échec au déploiement du programme.
Okay, I would like to welcome Elisabeth Botello-Nevers. Elisabeth is PU-PH and is head of clinical units of infectious diseases. Welcome to the set.
Thank you.
I will have a few questions for you later on, but first we are going to hear all about the SMAP project. Luc, would you like to present your study?
Yeah, thank you, Susie. I will present the SMAP project, which focuses on the use of social marketing to promote physical activity and especially fall prevention programs for older adults in France. Today, falls are one of the leading causes of mortality among people aged 65 and over. And we know that physical activity programs, and especially fall prevention programs, are the most effective actions to prevent falls. However, the acceptance rate of older adults to participate in fall prevention programs is under 20% in France. With our team, we have identified social marketing as one of the most common methods that are used today to promote healthy behavior and especially physical activity. Social marketing is the adaptation of commercial marketing technologies to program designed to influence the behavior of target audiences to improve their welfare of the society which they are part. Social marketing proposes to use the ideas and marketing approach of private companies to implement more effective prevention programs. Social marketing is based on a set of tools and an approachment. First, we need to understand the behavior of the target audience, their motivations, their barriers, and we have to identify the elements that compete with the behavior we want to promote. And then we have to segment the population into subgroups. Then different actions will be implemented on a specific territory. First step, we have to coordinate with partners and stakeholders, proposing a new behavior for the target audience, which will be acceptable at a minimum cost. Also, the behavior must be accessible to the target audience. Older adults must benefit from easier access to the places where the fall prevention programs are held. Then it is also important to provide a communication campaign. Finally, it's essential to evaluate the different actions implemented. Social marketing tools are of great interest in the development of an intervention to promote physical activity among older adults. Knowledge of our target public, as well as its barriers and motivation to the adoption of the behavior we offer, is primordial in the construction of an intervention. It is also essential to mobilize the actors in the field, the partners, but especially the target audience to co-construct and propose something relevant.
Thank you very much. So, Luc, if I understand correctly, social marketing is not only communication.
Yeah, that's right, Susie. Social marketing is a method of several steps which communication is in. It's a complete approach to allow the adoption of healthy behavior and to promote public health actions, especially for older adults. However, to be effective, and the scientific literature has shown this, it is necessary to mobilize the entire approach of social marketing. Many people think when they see the promotion of a prevention campaign that it's only communication. But behind the campaign, public health professionals have mobilized every social marketing tools.
Super, thank you very much. We are now going to listen to Maxime Catrom, who's a PhD student working with Elizabeth, and who's going to speak about the Vital project. Thank you, Maxime.
Thank you, Susie. Well, hello everyone, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak for a few minutes today. So I'm going to present the Vital project to you, which is a European project focusing on vaccines and infectious diseases in the aging population. It started in January 2019 and is led by the RIVM, which is the National Institute for Public Health and the Environment in the Netherlands. So this project was born after that the following observation was made. Vaccination of adults, and especially vaccination of elderly people, is not currently perceived as a priority compared to vaccination of children. Indeed, the lack of knowledge on the vaccines available, as well as on the recommendations related to these vaccines, contribute to the fact that vaccination is not a priority, and therefore that vaccination rates are not enough among this class of the population. However, in a world of increasing life expectancy and with an increasingly aging population, it is estimated that people over 65 years old will represent more than half of the world's population by 2050. And unfortunately, infectious diseases will inevitably become more and more frequent in this population. So the health impact of these diseases, as well as the cost of their care for the various health systems and for patients and their families, will increase significantly. And this is where vaccination makes sense, to prevent some of these infectious diseases, but also to keep health systems, the various health systems, in good condition. So many works make up this very large Vital project, and I will focus on work package 4, which is the one I am currently working on as part of my PhD with GMAP, Cher Prévaxi, and Presage Institute. This work package 4, entitled Roadmap on Training and Education of Healthcare Professionals, aims to build a framework containing comprehensive and innovative educational resources regarding vaccines and immunization strategies for healthcare professionals or healthcare workers involved in aging and elderly care. One of the objectives here is, for example, to develop an educational platform to train, but also to provide tools related to the promotion of vaccination. To do this, studies have been and are currently being carried out in 4 countries: Hungary, Italy, the Netherlands, and France. First, a qualitative focus group study has been carried out simultaneously in those 4 countries with adults aged 50 and over. The aim was to explore the perspective and information needs of those people regarding vaccination, but also to explore the network surrounding older adults when they have questions on their health or their vaccinations. So this first part was focused on older adults, and the second part that we are currently undertaking is focused on health professionals. The objectives of this second part are, first, to explore attitudes and perspectives of healthcare professionals about vaccination of seniors, but also to identify their needs and possible training objectives on this subject. This part is carried out through a qualitative study by conducting semi-structured interviews with healthcare professionals involved in the care of elderly people, such as general practitioners, pharmacists, nurses, or even geriatricians. Secondly, to explore and visualize the network around healthcare professionals and the information flows regarding vaccination of elderly people. This time, it will be done through an online questionnaire sent to a larger amount of professionals. And so, whether in content or in form, the educational platform I mentioned previously will be adapted according to all the results we will obtain with these studies. To finish, one last thing you may have noticed and on which I would like to insist is that most of the studies conducted here are qualitative studies, and this for 2 reasons. First, a systematic review of literature has been conducted in parallel with part 1 of this work package. And so this will bring us statistical and quantitative data on the subject. But most importantly, a qualitative work which brings us a deeper investigation on the subject, on information and perspective needs of interviewed people, is much more interesting here in light of the objectives than a quantitative study. Recurring topics such as hesitancy, vaccine hesitancy, or lack of knowledge are discussed with a greater length and with more detail than with a quantitative study, and this should help us to find more solutions. Thank you for having listened to me.
Thank you, Maxime. That was very interesting. Do you mind if I ask you a question? I have a question for you about breaks. So would you mind telling us a little bit more about the breaks for vaccination for health professionals?
Yes. According to the first answer I had from healthcare professionals, so nurses, pharmacists, and general practitioners, breaks are plural. First, there are the fear of the vaccine and the fear of side effects, of course. Second, we have the fake news. Fake news which spreads through medias, social networks, and then through family or friends, for example. Fake news about vaccine, so efficacy, security, adjuvants, excipients, and also fake news about the disease. The incidence among the population, the seriousness, the gravity of the disease, or even the transmission of the disease. And a last break, which is important, is the fact that some healthcare professionals are not getting vaccinated. And this is a barrier because there is a big trust relation between the patient and the nurses, the nurse, for example. And if the nurse is not vaccinated, it will be complicated to get the patient vaccinated.
Okay, thank you. Elizabeth, a question for you. So Maxime told us all about the professional side of things. Would you mind telling us a little bit about the results on the patient side?
Yeah, in fact, as Maxime said, some focus groups have been conducted with people, aging people older than 15, and it was very interesting because there is a focus group in all the 4 countries. And what we can see, and in fact, what we can see each day in our consultation, for instance, is if aging people have some general knowledge about how a vaccine works, they do, most of the knowledge is about flu and tetanus. But they are not aware about other infectious diseases that are vaccine preventable, such like pneumococcus or zona also. So they don't know about the disease and about the vaccines, and they consider that in fact most of the vaccines is only for children and not for there. It's also very interesting to see that people have a lot of concern. It's the same in the general population, but about, of course, efficacy, but side effects. And they have also a lot of concerns about possible interactions with their medications. And sometimes they think it's not a good thing to be vaccinated because they have some medications. So it's a very interesting point. In fact, the GP notably is a very important healthcare worker about vaccine. And if a GP recommend the vaccination, in the most of cases they will be get the vaccination. And as Maxime said, nurses, for instance, that have are more hesitant about vaccination, and they are now very important people to recommend vaccination also.
To encourage.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's very important to improve the communication and the knowledge of nurses about vaccines to give the good information for people. And for my colleagues, for instance, people know that to do exercise, it's important to be in good health and good aging. But for the interviewed people, vaccines are not a main factor in healthy aging. So we need to improve that.
Education.
And to educate them to know that in fact vaccine, it's a very good way to keep a good health and to prevent infectious disease that in fact in elderly have a very huge importance in the disability and other things like that.
Sure.
And all these focus groups have been conducted before the pandemics. And I think it's very important to know if with the pandemics and with all the importance of COVID-19 vaccines, something could change or not. But in fact, GPs and healthcare professionals are very, very important source of information and very important people trust in them. So it's the work of Maxime to better understand with qualitative research the opinion and the behavior of healthcare professionals.
Sure. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Susie.
Luc, we have a question from the public that I'd like to ask you. What are the distribution channels for your visual materials?
Yeah, last year we made a survey with older adults and we identified like local newspaper is the best distribution channel to give the information for older adults. So we are in the half page of the newspaper, you have the poster to encourage older adults to call us to participate in a fall prevention program. And we are using as well like a radio spot. And we made one interview in a TV local channel as well.
Super. Right, we have some time now to have a debate together. So I have some questions for you. And the first question is, so I'll let anybody on, those of you who would like to answer. So there's a link between physical activity and cognition, which this concept, this idea was presented by Caroline. Would anybody like to add anything to that? For example, Alzheimer's disease. Do we have precise information that the lack of physical activity may influence the current rising incidence of this disease today? Would anybody like to say anything about that?
You want? Yeah, okay. 3 hypotheses can explain the link between cognition and physical activity.
Sorry?
Oh, sorry. You want?
No, I just didn't understand the first word.
3 hypotheses can explain the link between physical activity and cognition. The first is neural, suggests that information is treated more quickly for people who realize physical activity. The second hypothesis is metabolic. We explain that physical activity increase the blood flow and so the oxygen in the brain. And the third hypothesis is nutritive, show that physical activity play a role in the density of the brain tissue.
Okay. Great. Would anybody else like to add anything on that?
What I want to say about the work presented by Caroline is that in addition to this hypothesis, we have other elements as maybe you have to make a difference between sedentarity and physical activity. If you look about sedentarity, you are going to have opportunities to see the lack of maybe performance during cognition, so that you have a good result with a last study. Maybe you lost 30% of your capacity if you are sedentary. Donc that is more important because we are always talking about physical activity, but what we can say is that you have to look about sedentarity because our new way of life, still we have opportunity to work at home so that we don't have opportunity to go out, maybe make a physical activity such as walk, go and left your child at school so that we are if you still keep this way of life, you are going to maybe only lose physical activity and you have the relation between false, but you can lose you can always lose your maybe low performance on cognition, then you can have Alzheimer's disease. That's more important to see.
Okay, thank you, bienvenue. Let's move on to the next question, which is the following. It's difficult to have people change their habits in general. People in general, not younger people, older people. Everybody has difficulty changing their habits. Is this something that occurs more in the population of older adults?
An observation we can have with other adults is that they are used to do some things and or not. And so when they have to get vaccinated for a new vaccine, for example, or for a vaccine they didn't do before, we need to find the good arguments. For example, with influenza vaccination, when it is the first time, they have a lot of questions with a nurse, a pharmacist, or general practitioners. But the following years, with influenza vaccination, most of the time they have integrated it. So it's okay. It's just the first time to change the habits, and then
the mindset.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Yes. Would you like to say so? Would you like to add something?
I agree with Maxime. It's very difficult to change older adults' behavior. But I think it's not only just information. We have to take into account their barriers, their motivation, and shape some intervention or programs adapted and co-constructed with older adults. It's the principle of social marketing, and I think with the vaccine, it will be a good method to encourage older adults to vaccine them.
Complete quickly. There are something that healthcare professionals told me a lot is about communication techniques or keywords to find the good arguments to have in front of older people, like motivational interviewing. I don't know if you know this, but these are things we have to work on to find solutions.
Okay. Right.
Sorry.
Sure, no.
In fact, as Luc said, I think it's very important to really understand and understand what people want to observe or to change in order to co-construct some interventions. And for vaccination is the same. It's what is important in the Vital 4 work package is to first learn about the fears, what they aging adults want, and about vaccines, for instance. So it's crucial.
Understand what motivates them, understand what they're afraid of, understand what their breaks are. Okay.
Because as physicians, for instance, sometimes we have a representation about the fear of the people. And it's not, we do a lot of work and communication and information about this fear, and people say, oh no, but it's not.
That's not the problem. Okay.
So
sure.
It's necessary.
Yeah. Okay.
It takes time, but.
I guess in the older population, we also see people have more time to do activities that we don't have time to do when we're younger. All right, fine. Let's move on to have another question about vaccination. So I don't know who wants to answer this question. If we look at the situation concerning vaccination, are there particular breaks that are seen in the older adults in comparison to the younger population?
Yes, I don't know if it's really particular, but another thing that healthcare professionals told me is that it's a population who watches a lot TV or radios, as I said before, and sometimes the information on TV is not appropriate, or it can produce fear if you don't have the good elements to understand it. So medias can be particular break, especially in this population. And especially if family or friends are also watching the same thing on TV.
Okay. Jessica, would you like to say anything about doctors and their reluctance to...
Yes.
Yeah? Perhaps introduce the idea.
Yeah,
the doctors are reluctant to prescribe.
Yes, there's a law. The law came in 2016, and it allows the GPs to prescribe physical activities for people with chronic diseases or with long illness. And we and the research team, we did a research study about this law and how it is accepted by the or the politics is accepted by the structures that offer physical activities. By the participants, older adults and people suffering from chronic diseases, and also by GPs themselves. And they are not prescribing a lot of physical activity. There are many obstacles that they mentioned, so we conducted a semi-structures interview with the GPs, and the first one is the lack of clear information about this law. Basically, they do not know how to prescribe or to apply the law. The lack of knowledge of the existing structures as well is very mentioned by GPs. And the lack of time in consultation also. And sometimes they also feared that the structures may not be competent enough to manage their patients, especially their patients with cardiovascular diseases. So it's also a problem for that. But we hope that it might change.
Things will evolve.
Things will evolve. Maybe, Bienvenue, you want to talk about the training of the GPs, because maybe with new training.
Yes. I think that another barrier is, how I can say it, is during the courses of students in France, we don't have opportunity to make the student to try to, maybe they don't have opportunity to write this kind of
thesis
opportunity. Okay, you have in here a pharmacist. In France, you have to write a drugs. You can go to the pharmacy and
to prescribe.
Yes.
To prescribe. Okay.
Yes, you prescribe, or maybe you have a prescription of drugs, so you can go to the pharmacy and you have a deliveration. Then you can use the drug. The GP know the dosage, is able to maybe have the the price and when you can go and take it. But you have in France, you have no information for when can you go and have the good and the right physical activity.
People don't know.
Maybe Alzheimer's disease, maybe diabetes, maybe other. So it is not in our way to write because we don't have pharmacies, we don't have the price, we don't have maybe we don't know, we don't have any opportunity to speak with the maybe the offer of this this physical activity, and that is the according to my point of view, that this is the very good difficulty for GP to write.
Okay. Sure, of course. Mm-hmm.
The structures that offer physical activities, there are many structures of different kind. And around the France, if you go in the northeast of France, you have that kind of structure. You may not find here in Saint-Étienne. And that's also sometimes difficult for participants to know towards what structure or which structure to go. And it's also difficult for GPs to know, okay, I will prescribe you, I will refer you to this professional, but is he specialized in cardiovascular disease? Is he specialized in diabetes? Is it specialized for people with obesity? So sometimes it's also difficult because of the diversity, which is good in one hand, but on the other hand, it's also difficult to find and to know which one is the best suited.
So there's a lack of communication in a way. I mean, if the doctors don't know what activities exist?
It must be local level communication will be, I think, a key to a better understanding of what it's possible to do in physical activity. And it's sometimes hard to put in place. But yes, it's also a lack of communication. Even if here in Saint-Étienne, we have GPs, you see the Dr. David Dupin, and he's specialized in physical activity, and he's doing a great work about informing the GPs on the strictures. So people are trying.
Okay. Yeah. So we hope there's going to be some evolution in this.
I hope so.
In this way too. Yes. You want? Yeah. Sure. Luc, go ahead.
And if we propose an exchange for the GP, like a financial incentive, is it maybe a solution to encourage them to prescribe physical activity?
Sorry, it's a little bit more difficult than that, because in France, unfortunately, for a long time, prevention is not a priority. It's not what is given to our students in medicine or in other area. So I think it's needed change, and it's need time, because you said GP don't know at the end of a consultation. People arrive with 5 or 6 or 7 problems, health problems. So they need to do all the
check those things first,
and at the end is prevention for activity or for vaccine is the same. So we need to it's a need to change, but in depth to really
to change the mindset.
Of GPs and also of people.
But they say that in the interviews, they say that they lack time in consultation for physical activity, but that's also the case for other prevention practices.
Sure.
Sure. And maybe the motivational interviews might be...
yes, but it's a lot of time.
Yes, motivational interviewing takes a lot of time, but I think we can be inspired by techniques inspired from motivational interviewing. We don't have to do all the motivational interviewing of half an hour. We can just take keywords, take communication techniques, things like that, and it could be a first step to try and to find solutions.
I agree.
And prevention consultations could be also, the consultation is only focused on preventions a lot of in different area. It exists in other countries and in some. So I think we need to change. I hope so.
Right. Maybe it needs to be another structure. Maybe it needs to be out of the hands, I don't know, but of the doctor, for example. the patient or the older person would go and see somebody else.
Yes, it could be somebody else, but I think GPs or pharmacists or the nurse or all the people need
professionals
need to be also involved, because I think if we separate prevention, somebody, and cure, it's another. It's not. It doesn't work.
I understand. It needs to be everybody. It needs to be involved. I get you.
It's necessary to educate and to professionalize the prevention, of course, also. And some of our healthcare providers now are not educated on prevention.
Okay. Sure. Does anybody else want to add anything else? Anything else you want to say? Okay. I had a question about the caregivers. The family caregivers. Would you like to say something about their role? Because it seems there are a lot of breaks. So on the doctor's side, on the older adult side, what about the family caregivers? What can they bring? What kind of solutions can they bring?
Well, regarding vaccination, yes, they are crucial, but only if they are not hesitant. If family caregivers are vaccine hesitant people, they will have a negative impact of the, on the patient.
Okay.
So we have to work with patients, but also with family caregivers of any age to reduce vaccine hesitancy on all the age in the population.
A lot of work. I think Maxime can do 4 PhD.
And what about the physical activity? If we take away the vaccination part and we just look at the physical activity part, what is the role of the family caregiver?
I think it's the same. Caregivers are very, very important. We often see, not especially for physical activity, but for other prevention study. Often when one in the couple are convinced that it's good, often it's the woman in the couple. She takes her husband to do the prevention study, to do physical activity. So it's very important to convince the family caregivers as well. Without retiring the empowerment of
without taking away the empowerment,
their empowerment of the patient.
Okay.
It's a balance to find. But
Okay. Sure. I have one more question that is about government prescriptions and health campaigns. Are government prescriptions and health campaigns efficient in promoting physical activity in older adults? Bienvenue, would you like to answer that one?
I don't understand your question because I was looking to I was looking to a comment from
okay.
Yes.
Yeah, sure.
Can you
sure, I'll repeat.
Yes.
Are government prescriptions and health campaigns efficient in promoting physical activity in older adults?
I think that the government decision to pass the law from prescription of physical activity was good. It's a good opportunity.
Okay.
But I think that it wasn't enough because you have a lot of barrier and I can say it. You have a law without without anything all around. Maybe there was no budget. We don't know. There was no budget. There was not maybe training for students, because if you want to do this kind of law, you have to prepare the environment. You have to prepare students to GP to write. You need a budget because how can we go to physical activity without knowing the price? And who pay in France? In France, in prevention, maybe if you you have maybe diabetes or anything, you have a reimbursement in France.
Yeah.
Okay. In the case of physical activity, you don't have this. You have maybe in any town, sometime some mayor try to help, but you cannot have a real politics without trying to work, and so you have any visibility. And what I can say about this law is that it was good. It's a great opportunity, but we have to maybe ask the government to go around, and so that is what I can say, because we have more time when we are looking around. You have something we don't have.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, sure. All right. We have a question from Linda Garcia, who's with the GARP project in Canada. So the question is, concerning the link between physical activity and domestic activities, can we see a difference between what demands some form of cerebral planning and what does not? In other words, an activity that becomes routine to us, does that mean that it's no longer beneficial?
This question is for
Caroline.
Yes.
Yeah? Okay, super.
It was proved that physical activity regular, not intense but regular, have more more benefic.
is more beneficial?
Yeah, beneficial, sorry, for cognition. That it explained that in the 4 cohorts, we can see that domestic activity with regular, moderate are more beneficial than physical activity because it works more plus profondément.
It's on a deeper level.
Yeah, on the cognition.
Yeah, okay. So are you saying it needs to be regular?
Yeah.
Regular, ordinary activity?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Fine. Do we have anything else? Does anybody want to add? I don't have any more questions. I don't know if we have any more questions from outside. Does anybody want to add anything before we go on to the next subject?
Okay.
Are you good?
Yeah.
Okay.
Are we good? All right, super. So Caroline, Elisabeth, Maxime and Luc are going to leave the set. But before they leave, I want to thank you very much for coming today and for participating and for making big effort to speak in English. And I know it's not your mother tongue and it's not easy, so well done and thank you. And we're going to be joined by Vianney and Vincent. All right. Many thanks to our researchers and professors as well. Right, so before we continue, I just want to say I hope you found the first theme interesting and informative. Some of your questions perhaps were not answered, and we thus invite you to send us your written questions to our researchers. The address, which of course you can find on our website, is GARP France, in one word, @outlook.com. We are now going to begin the second theme of the day, which is innovation in adapted prevention for aging. I'd like to welcome Vincent Augusto, who is head of the Center for Biomedical and Healthcare Engineering, and Vianney Rosan, who's a university lecturer in neuromuscular physiology. Welcome to you both. Bienvenue and Jessica will remain with us for the duration of the second theme. So to introduce the subject of the second theme, Jessica, would you like to talk about your study on stroke prevention?
Sure.
Super.
So this is the Prevent Stroke study. This is a screening program for stroke risk factors in people aged 65 and above. So the frontline professionals, which are nurses, pharmacists, health examination center, they carry out the screening. And for the screening, we use a small connected device called the NeuroCoach. So stroke risk factors are mainly related to lifestyle. So it can be high blood pressure, it can be sedentary lifestyle. It can be also smoking and many, many more, unfortunately. But there's also atrial fibrillation, sleep apnea syndrome, and dysfunction of the autonomic nervous system. Our study aims to experiment a screening program of those 3 risk factors and to evaluate the feasibility of this program. There are several stages to the screening, to the study. So first is to detect the people aged 65 and above, and that's the job of the frontline professionals. Then is to direct them towards their general practitioner, towards prevention care. We did a follow-up of the participants at 3 months to know what they had done after the screening, if they had changed their lifestyle, if they went to see their physician. And finally, we conducted a qualitative and a quantitative analysis to evaluate the feasibility of the study. After 36 months, we have completed 2,230 recordings. That's lots, and that's great for the study.
Yeah.
You can find more detailed figures on the different risk factors on the video, which is online.
Yeah, the video that we didn't see.
Yes, but which is online, so you can.
The video that's online. Yeah. Okay.
I will present more the qualitative analysis, and it shows that the participants are globally satisfied with this prevention action. The majority of the participants consulted their general practitioner after the screening, but only a few attend therapeutic education sessions. The frontline professionals are also very receptive to the experiment. At the beginning of the study, we had difficulties in the recruitments in working class neighborhoods, which we were able to overcome by calling out other professionals, so not pharmacists, but in this case, nurses and health associations. And it helped us to create local level dynamics to prevent fragility. So in conclusions, our results show that the stroke prevention program is possible, including frontline professionals. And this procedure is effective in detecting significant risk factors in an asymptomatic population, because the participants, I didn't mention it, but the participants are 65 and above living at home.
Oh, okay, and living at home, 65 and above and living
yes,
at home.
and living at home.
Okay. All right. I have a question for you precisely about the frontline professionals. Why is it important for them to participate in this type of program? And so that question. And then what is their role exactly?
Yes, and also I will start with the interest for the frontline professionals. It reinforces their sense of usefulness.
Okay.
I will quote a nurse that I interviewed.
Yeah.
She had a patient who was not sleeping well.
Yeah.
And he didn't see his doctors very often. So he did the test, the screening. The screening detected sleep apnea.
Yeah.
He went to a cardiologist who confirmed the diagnosis. And he's been followed ever since. And she said that it's gratifying to think that she were able to help him. And that's a speech that we can hear a lot from frontline professionals. So the sense of usefulness. I don't know if we can say that.
Yeah. The sense of usefulness, that it's gratifying.
Yes, that it's gratifying for them. For pharmacists, it also allows them to diversify their activities.
Yeah.
To participate in prevention activities, prevention actions, to strengthen also the bond of trust with their patient, with their clients for a pharmacist.
Yeah.
And to offer different services because they are increasingly competing with supermarkets, for instance, or big drugstores. So it allows them to have new role that supermarkets will never have. But it's also a difficult place to find for the frontline professional because they're not doctors.
Yeah.
And often in people's head, the prevention process is more the job of general practitioners. So it was sometimes difficult for them to find their places.
Whereas a person might see the pharmacist or the nurse more often than the doctor, so which makes their role even more important.
Yes, yes. And what's important, and we talk about it in the first session as well, is to create a local ecosystem. We can say ecosystem.
Yes.
A local care ecosystem.
Yeah, a care ecosystem,
Yes, with pharmacists, with GPs, with specialists, nurses.
Freelance nurses who go to people's homes, for example, who have contact with people directly, who can play that role.
And for our study, the fact that we call out the nurses. It was good for older adults because they are difficulties to walk sometimes and to come to their pharmacists. Sometimes that's their family caregivers to come for them. But they're also living at home. They're also sometimes at risk. So it's important to touch this kind of participant to call out. To impact. Thank you. To impact. It's also important to have the nurses help us.
Okay. Super. I have another question, and that is in the program. What were the obstacles for older patients to participate in the program?
So the obstacles, we see obstacles at the beginning, and we were able with communication, with conferences to overcome those obstacles. The main obstacles was first they were a little bit afraid of the device.
Okay.
But when we explain it, they see that it was simple to use. So it's connected here and here.
Okay.
And you just have to put it on your pocket and sleep.
All right. Simple, inoffensive.
Simple, inoffensive.
Okay.
And the second obstacle was the difficulties to, when they do the screening, they receive by mail compte rendu.
The results.
The results. The results. And the results were difficult to understand.
All right.
Even for me. I'm not a doctor, but they were difficult to understand.
Okay.
So that's a problem. But that's why it's important to do such a feasibility study, because we were able to refer directly to the Life Medical Control, which is the entreprise, the company, and they changed the results to be more accessible to the people. Thank you, bienvenue.
Okay. Great. All right, super. Thank you, Jessica. For your information, you can find more videos on Jessica and her team's work on the website if you would like to go and see more about the subject. We're going to move on now to your subject, Vincent, which is new technologies in the fields of health and autonomy.
Yeah, sure. So actually, what we are developing in Mines Saint-Étienne is actually two different types of research. First of all, we are working in health engineering, so we are working with researchers in collaboration with the Hospital of Saint-Étienne and also with clinics and other practitioners on developing new technologies that will be applied in everyday care in these different institutes. So that's actually our main job, doing research in this context. And on the other hand, we developed recently, and there is a video about this, I think on the website, a living lab that is called MedTech Lab, in order to develop the living lab approach, the co-creation and experimentation approach applied to this research project. So in that sense, we are trying to combine what we're doing in research, in innovation with practitioners, with new technologies applied to healthcare, with this kind of methodology that is undertaken by the living lab, actually. So basically, that's the two different topics that we are working on.
Super. That's very interesting. Other than the examples that you presented in your video, no, sorry. Other than the examples that you spoke about, do you have other examples of technological devices developed by MedTech Lab?
Okay,
Could you talk to us a little bit about the other?
Yeah. So actually, for example, we have one big project that is related to the frailty detection with using sensors at home. Yeah. So basically, we equipped the living of elderly person with sensors, such as motion sensors, in order to learn and to study what are the habits of living of this person at home. Using this kind of data, we are able to model what is happening at home, and we are able to use some kind of artificial intelligence algorithms in order to predict what will be the future behavior of these persons. So basically, we are able to provide to these people at home some kind of report, some kind of results in order to give them some insights about what is going on into their everyday life and to give them some prevention advice actually to better control their health and to avoid dependency, which is actually the final outcome that we want to avoid as much as possible.
Okay. So I'm sorry, you had a video that you made that we were going to show.
Okay.
That I completely forgot to.
No problem.
We're going to watch that now. Thank you.
MedTech Lab is a living lab born from the collaboration of Mines Saint-Étienne and AESIO. It was created in 2019 along with the Future Medicine Technological Platform of Mines Saint-Étienne. MedTech Lab is an interdisciplinary meeting space to think, co-create, to model, to test, to experiment, and to assess the use of products or services, incorporating new technologies in the fields of health and autonomy. This is done in a controlled environment and also in a real-life environment. MedTech Lab provides collective intelligent workshops based on the well-known design thinking methodology. In addition, we have a test bed consisting in a smart apartment equipped with various sensors, for example, presence sensor, motion sensors, and also cameras and analyzers. The partnership between AESIO Santé and Mines Saint-Étienne is a major advantage. Mines Saint-Étienne brings engineers, scientists, students, and pedagogical engineers, while AESIO Santé brings users, health professionals, for example, general practitioners, medical specialists, healthcare assistants, and so on. Such test bed is the opportunity to test products or services at the same time in a controlled environment, but also in a real-life environment. These experiments are conducted in medico-social and healthcare establishments. Let me give you two examples of works that we have been doing. Using the design thinking approach, we worked on a smart bed project involving gerontologists, nurses, engineers, bed manufacturers, and residents from residential homes for dependent persons. This process allowed us to propose the first design of this smart bed, and now we have an industrial thesis going on in collaboration with Atelier du Haut-Forêt to build the bed that will be installed in residential homes of the AESIO Santé group. Another example is a project related to physical activities of elderlies. This project was conducted in collaboration with a startup named KiwiCube. Through design thinking again, we helped the company to design the uses of device designed to encourage physical activities in residential homes. First, it was done in a controlled environment, and then in the Cité des Aînés, a residential home of Aesio Santé in Saint-Étienne. To conclude, the MedTech Lab is open to everyone, companies, health practitioners, patients, citizens, to help co-create your project related to health and autonomy.
Thank you. Absolutely, it makes sense now. A question about the price of the possibility for people to get these kinds of machines or devices. Is it something that we would find in a retirement home? Is it something that people could actually buy and install in their homes, like the beds or sporting equipment? You know, we all know that elderly people, have bracelets in case they fall, things like that, that are accessible to them. But what about these kind of technologies? Are they accessible? Are they?
So it really depends on the projects. So, for example, for the sensors that I was talking about earlier, actually the technology is really cheap because we are using some basic sensors, basic technology that can be used.
That's very interesting.
Yeah, that can be used and that can be accessed very easily now. What would be expensive maybe would be all what we need to accompany these people to use this kind of technologies actually. For example, for this example that I was talking about frailty prevention, it's actually pretty cheap to provide some kind of technology like that. But what would be expensive would be the service that comes with that. For example, if you want to put in place an alert,
the installation,
this kind of thing. So that could be the problem actually.
Okay. Thank you. I have another question for you. Can you tell us a little bit more about your partnership with Aesio Group? More particularly, talk about maybe the advantages of this partnership?
Yeah, sure. So maybe I can present quickly what is Aesio.
Sure.
So Aesio actually is an health insurance company, which has actually two main activities. One about insurance, health insurance. The other one about healthcare. So they have also a clinic, non-for-profit clinics in France. And so the main purpose of the collaboration between Mines Saint-Étienne and Aesio is the development of research dedicated to healthcare. So they have some kind of topics. So for example, we saw in the video, we worked with them on a new bed that could be installed into retirement homes. So that's one example of what kind of project we are doing with them. So that will be the main one type of collaboration. And second collaboration that we have is actually the living lab that I presented in this video, which was really a wish of this company to develop in order to have some kind of test bed environment for these new technologies actually.
All right, super. So we're going to move on to Vianney's work, and we're going to watch a video on that. So let's not forget, so have a video on your work, right? All right.
Good morning, my name is Professor J.B. Morin. I am a full professor here at the University of Saint-Étienne. My main topic of research is biomechanics of locomotion and sports performance. And in the specific population of elderly people, we are going to investigate the role of the foot and ankle strength in everyday life, autonomy, and risk of fall. So the PhD project that will start is a pilot study. We will try to assess the foot strength and capability, and we will try to see if a specific training can improve foot strength and autonomy and markers of the risk of falling. So for that, we will use some devices that we have here at the lab, like biomechanics, motion analysis, and a specific training setting. The long-term objective of this project is to see if specific training, simple training sessions that can be done at home can improve the foot function and the foot strength, because we think that the foot is the basis of the entire locomotion chain. And so in the long term, it may help improving health based on very simple approaches and methods.
I'm Professor Léonard Féasson, and I work at the University Hospital Center of Saint-Étienne, and I am a member of the Inter-University Laboratory of Human Movement Biology. In 1999, I created the myology unit of the Department of Clinical Physiology and Exercise. This unit is now located within the Regional Institute of Sports, Medicine and Engineering, of which I am the medical manager. My research activities are focused on understanding the mechanisms involved in the homeostasis, maintenance and repair of skeletal muscle and its function, and the development of physical reconditioning strategies to limit the degradation. Muscle Bioage project is a good example of our research. The aim of this project is to specify the mechanisms underlying biological aging of skeletal muscle in elderly subjects of identical chronological age. Our approach is multidisciplinary and translational, based on histological, biochemical, and molecular tissue techniques and integrative functional physiological analysis applied to healthy or pathological human subjects.
I'm Vianney Rosant. I'm assistant professor at the Inter-University Laboratory of Human Biology. My research projects aim at understanding the effects of aging and physical activity level on neuromuscular fatigue. We evaluate the amount of muscle fatigue induced by different kinds of tasks like isometric contractions or cycling to characterize the capacities of the elderly people. We also want to know which level of physical activity would be necessary to maintain or limit the alteration of neuromuscular function. We are interested in old adults aged over 60 years old, but also in very old adults aged over 80 years old, for which the capacities are even more altered. Our long-term goal would be to propose adapted physical activity programs for older people to improve their quality of life and limit the alteration of functional capacities. The old adults who are testing are recruited by advertisements in local newspapers or in a local association of retired people. And for the very old adults, we have a cohort that has been created in 2001, and these people are regularly tested on their physical function.
Thank you, Vianney, for your intervention in this little video. I have a question for you, but before I ask you the question, is there anything you want to add to the information that we've just seen? Is there anything else you want to say?
So to develop our project I presented in the video, for example, so we are testing different people, from young people to very old adults. And we are measuring their level of physical activity, daily activity, and we want to know which level of activity is sufficient to maintain their physical function, and up to which level is there could be a plateau, for example. So, for example, sportsmen, even what we call master athletes, so people who are old but still competing, do they have very high level of physical function compared to even active people who are just walking? So is walking sufficient, or do you need to compete to do high level, high intensity sports?
High intensity, okay. Yeah. All right, fine. Do you plan to make a gender comparison?
Yeah, this is an important question. We are interested in gender comparisons because males and females are aging differently.
Yeah.
So typically, males are losing more muscle force than females. Okay. So because at the beginning they have more muscle mass.
Yeah.
So they have more to lose.
Right.
And females, they are less fatigable than males.
They have more endurance?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So this is important because then you have to know what are the characteristics of males and females, to individualize the prevention programs you will propose to them.
Okay, sure, that makes sense. All right, thank you very much. So we have some general questions now that I will ask you to, whoever wants to answer, if anybody specific wants to answer them. The first one perhaps is for you two, about engineering. So how can engineering and artificial intelligence contribute to prevention? Perhaps you both have something to...
You want to start?
I can give you an example, if you want.
So, sure.
We've been working with Bienvenue actually on a project, so a collaboration between CETAF and Mines Saint-Etienne.
Okay.
So we've been working, for example, on analyzing databases, healthcare databases, in order to understand what is the clinical pathway of patients and especially elderly persons. So you have to know that in France we are lucky because it's possible to access gigantic databases, which are actually managed by Assurance Maladie, which is a public health insurer in France. And so we were able to access this data and to analyze what is going on into this clinical pathway. And using, for example, artificial intelligence tools, it's possible to get the knowledge from this data to understand, for example, what could be connected at two different points of this clinical pathway from one cause to one consequence.
Okay.
So that's one example of what we can do using AI to better understand this data and to better take actions at different points. And this is where CETAF can contribute because they have like a lot of consultation centers where these actions could be done actually.
Okay. That sounds interesting, yes?
Yeah, we have a project that is close to Vincent, what Vincent presented for the living labs. So we have a PhD that started 2 years ago, where we want to evaluate people in their daily life. So we are evaluating their force, their endurance, their flexibility. And so we would have an overview of, they would have an overview of their capacities. And so with this evaluation, we could propose programs specifically to develop so the capacity they have less, for example.
Okay.
And so the people would be able to evaluate themselves on their on these tools.
Okay. All right. Would you like to say anything about design and how design what role would that have in this kind of these kind of technologies?
I think that discussion is for Vincent because he works enough.
Yeah.
With, the design team of Saint-Etienne.
Yeah.
And when we have opportunity in our country to maybe to experiment any tools, we need to maybe any tool or device we need to maybe to work with people of design so that we can improve acceptability of the tool because you can propose any good thing, but if people user don't if it is not acceptable for this population, your work is not interest.
Yeah.
So that Vincent is working enough with people of design.
Yeah.
Can maybe you have an opportunity, maybe debate, maybe you can show us any example.
Yeah, one example that we did is we worked with Cité du Design in Saint-Etienne, which is pretty famous.
Yeah.
On the design on how can I say on a GP general house. You see when you need to go to see your GP, your general practitioner, you can go to this kind of medical center where you have actually GPs, kinesiotherapists, and so on. So we have been working with City Design on learning on the uses on this kind of structures, how patients want this kind of structures to be. So we are conducting interviews, for example. We are conducting some kind of surveys.
Yeah.
And then we can work after that on modeling actually what will be this future structure, so this healthcare center, by using some kind of modeling techniques, by using some kind of performance evaluation approaches, this kind of thing. So that could be an interesting combination on designers' work and engineers' work after that.
Okay. Super. Why is it important to evaluate the feasibility of prevention programs?
I think, if I may start.
Sure. Of course.
I think it's important on different levels to evaluate the feasibility of programs. First, for the users, for the participants. So you have to evaluate the acceptability of the users. If you, we work often with caregivers, with nurses, with GPs, so you have to evaluate also the acceptabilities with the professionals. And the last level is the socioeconomic study, which is the hardest part. But we, as researchers, we experiment, we evaluate, we show that it works, but then you have to put it for the long term. And it's not in our hands anymore. And you have to show how much it costs. For example, for the stroke prevention program, we know that a stroke costs approximately 500 euros, maybe more, for one stroke.
For one stroke, okay.
So to deal with the consequences of the stroke, you have to spend a lot of money and insurance money. But this kind of prevention has a cost, but you can prevent this stroke. So the cost of the prevention is way cheaper,
way lower,
way lower than the cost of the consequences
of the stroke itself.
So I think it's important, and maybe Bienvenue, you can say a little more about the socioeconomic evaluation.
I'm not a socioeconomist.
Yes, you're not a socioeconomist.
What is true is that in our case, you have to know who's going to pay. Because this is very important. You can have a programs, and if you are not trying to experiment who is going to pay and how much you want to pay, and maybe if it is benefit for maybe the health insurance, because in France we the health are paid. We are not paid directly, so that we have a contribution and social national health insurance contribute and can pay if you have opportunity to show that the program is benefit for the population. So that if when we are trying to evaluate all these programs, is the first intention of us is to show that the program is benefit for people and is benefit for those who pay. And that is very important, because when we are working in university, we have a lot of program, maybe, but if you want to go out of university and so the programs be developed, accepted by caregivers, you have to show that caregiver will have a benefit. And that is why always I'm trying to work with Jessica, and even when we are working with Vincent, the EA, we are trying to use the EA to show that the program developed may be benefit for caregivers.
That's what I wanted to say. Actually, I think we are showing now a good example of how it could be done now, this kind of collaboration to encourage prevention by making some collaboration with social sciences, with medical economists, with engineers, in order to develop the
pluridisciplinary.
Exactly, to develop the tools, and at the same time to to find some ways to provide these tools to the people, to the caregivers, and also to evaluate the cost of all of that. So everything should be done at the same time, I think. And so collaboration is really important in that sense.
Is key.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else? Talking about collaboration, I have just a question. Perhaps you've answered it, but I'm not quite sure. The collaboration with GPs is often cited, and how can we reinforce the collaboration with the GPs?
Good question. I think in Saint-Étienne we have some kind of good setup, because we have like a very nice campus on the site of the University Hospital of Saint-Étienne. At the same time, the university, the hospital, and the engineering school. So we have like a good setup, I think, to encourage this collaboration. But you're right, actually, going to the GPs, it's another step, I think, which is not easy. We tried to work with them, but the problem is that they are so like they don't have a lot of time actually to spend with this kind of research project, and this is some kind of issue that we currently have. So I don't know if you have examples of things that could be done on that, but that sure is some kind of issue.
Food for thought.
Yeah, exactly. But we are really interested in this kind of prevention issues, because they are on the front line. So if we can provide some kind of tools to help them, for sure they will be really eager to use them. But the thing is time, actually.
Okay, so they're willing. It's the time that's the problem.
Exactly.
Okay, okay.
Sometimes it's easier with the physiotherapists.
Okay.
I guess because like we can develop tools that they could use in prevention, and I think the links with the physiotherapists are maybe easier than with the practitioners.
I imagine they would be very willing, the physiotherapists, to participate and collaborate.
Yeah, and we have some, actually in our lab, we have some physiotherapists that are coming to do a PhD in our lab, because they are interested in research too. So this helps a lot to develop collaboration with them, because when they go back to the through the job, they keep doing research and doing projects with us. So this is much easier with them.
Okay, super. So if nobody wants to add anything, I think we'll wrap it all up. Just before, I just wanted to say, don't hesitate to go and watch the other videos that are on our website. I think I've mentioned this already, but just to reiterate. And we are going to be joined by Véronique Régnier again, who's going to close today's webinar.
Thank you, Suzy. Just a few words to thank you, all of you, researchers and the public, for participating in this webinar. I hope that these research questions discussed today was interesting for you. And I remind you our second appointment, which will take place on May 26th, at the same time, the same place, and will be devoted to supported relationships in aging. Thank you, and have a nice day. Bye-bye.
Bye.